Hi there, this is Seconds Out Live. I am Danny Flexen, and if you'll indulge me for a few minutes, I am going to begin with one of my increasingly popular monologues, and I hope you don't mind. But if you do, you can always change the channel, I suppose. Please don't. Picture the scene, 1995. Your boy Flex is an actual boy, pubescent, annoying nerd. And I'm in the local branch of Blockbuster Video. Kids, if you don't know what that is, Google is your friend. But I was there to compete in the World Video Game Championships. Oh, yes. Local heats, I should point out. I wasn't much of a gamer, to be honest, as a kid. But everyone else was entering, all my friends and stuff. So I thought, yeah, I'll go in, see what's going on. I had a Sega at the time, a Mega Drive. To our American cousins, I think it's a Genesis. So I went in that branch of the competition. The Nintendo guys were there. There was a bit of a rivalry. Nothing kicked off in Blockbuster. We had too much respect for the chain. And yeah, first day, it was Sonic the Hedgehog, old classic. Absolutely smashed through that. Not amazing, but just in the outer reaches of the top 10, I was quite happy. The top 2 were to qualify for regionals. So I was quite excited because I went into it with admittedly low expectations. And then the second day, all my Christmases came at once because they don't tell you the game, or they didn't tell you the game until just before you play. And you know what? It was the game that I'd been smashing for at least 2 months prior, NBA Jam. I absolutely loved NBA Jam. Never watched a full game of NBA basketball in my life. Still haven't. But loved NBA Jam. It's the only way I knew any of the NBA players' names. And it was kind of the sports version of Street Fighter 2 at the time. I'm coming out with all the archaic references here. Absolutely destroyed everyone in the whole place at NBA Jam. People were looking on in awe. I'm sure there's other 42, 43-year-olds now that still remember the pain they felt that day when they got absolutely hammered by the unknown new kid on the block. Yours truly. And yeah, I was second overall. Such was my great performance in NBA Jam. I went all the way up from, I think, 9th to 2nd. I was on course for the regionals. What could possibly go wrong? And then the next day came. They unpacked the game from its case. The disc came out. Was it even a disc? No, it was a cartridge back then. The cartridge came out, and it was Virtua Racer, a game so little known, I think, that I had to Google it earlier today to remember what game I'd played on day 3. Virtua Racer, a game I'd never played before in my life. Still haven't, apart from that one halcyon day. And I've never been particularly good at racing games. I think that's probably why I only drive an automatic now. Well, I don't drive anything at the moment, but why I'm only legally allowed to drive an automatic car now. It's never really been my thing, never really been into cars. But Virtua Racer it was, and I had a lead to protect, 2nd place, going for regionals. And by that point, it's like any boxer will tell you once they've won a British title, or any British boxer, of course. Once you get to a certain level, your expectations, your ambitions change and are elevated as a result. And I had my heart set by that point on regionals, a bigger Blockbuster unit, no doubt. And so I'll get to grips with it. Never played it before. And shockingly enough, at the start, it's going quite well. I'm flying around the track. I'm weaving in and out of competitors, doing really well. And then I started to go into cruise control. Not literally. They didn't have that on games back then. But just kind of relaxing, took my eye off the ball a little bit perhaps. And it just all started to go wrong at the same time. I wasn't slowing down well enough for the corners. I was trying to weave into traffic through too small a gap. I crashed a number of times. I got up, dusted myself off. I finished the race, but any hope of regionals was long gone. And it was only earlier this week, actually no, last week, when I watched Tyson Fury's interview on his Ferocity channel, and he was talking about the pain of defeat to Oleksandr Usyk, the first defeat, of course, of his career, coming in his biggest fight for undisputed glory, that I truly felt that someone there knew what little 12-year-old me was going through. Because I think what undone me in the end was that it all became a bit too easy. It felt like I was going up against, I don't know, some shitty little Atari game, not the best that the Sega Mega Drive had to offer. And I fell at the final hurdle as a result, just like Fury, even though I still feel I did enough. So tough times for young Flex. Tough times for big old Gypsy King Tyson Fury too. Ayman, what's your take? Not on my story and my pubescent hormonal despair. What's your take on Tyson Fury's comments in the Ferocity video?
You know, Danny, I was wondering where that was going. I just said to the guys in the chat as well to get your popcorn out because this one, we're in for the long haul here. And it's one of those stories, I feel your plight, I feel your pain. It's one of those things, it's the old cliche that says, tough times don't last, but tough people do. You're one of those tough people, Danny. You've been through a lot, clearly, and you've come through the mill. And here you are now on Seconds Out Live. Maybe complacency crept in all those years ago, but complacency doesn't creep in for the Seconds Out Live fans who are here every week in the chat and getting their comments in. We're in here every week as well, too, to discuss everything in the boxing world. Tyson Fury's video. Look, I wanted to see something from Fury off the back of a little bit of concern I had because of seeing him stumbling out of the pub. A little bit of concern I had that maybe he might be going down the wrong path, the start of going down the wrong path, as we've seen videos in the past 4, 5, 6 years ago of him after he ballooned up in weight after a long time out of the ring. I was a little bit concerned, but just to see him just sit down for 4 or 5 minutes on the Furiosity channel and say, look, all's good, all's okay. I'm the same guy. I just had a drink, I had a bit of a night out. Nothing wrong with me. I'm entitled to do that. I'm back. I'm ready for December. I was in with a local amateur boxer. A little bit of that Fury sprinkle of fun and trolling was in there as well too. Great to see the little bit of the greatest hits from Tyson Fury. I'm looking forward to seeing Fury back in the ring with some of the greatest hits on December. We'll see if he can overturn the loss into a victory this time around. But I heard what I needed to hear from Fury. Let's just hope some of the other things don't creep back in. But for now, it seems like we're good to go for December.
Yeah, I mean, he certainly wasn't drinking Furosity on the night when he was kindly escorted out of the bar. But it is good to see him back on form. So, yeah, well done to Tyson Fury for getting back on the horse. But you've got to wonder how much he truly believes in some of the stuff he was saying. Usyk was just too easy. I mean, surely if he's too easy, he probably should have got the win. And not only that, local amateur fight. I mean, I think Usyk's not like the majority of amateurs. I know people talk about his punch-picking style and how it's similar to a lot of amateur fighters, but he's unique, Usyk, I would say, even amongst the amateurs and when he came through as an amateur himself. Yeah, it's a tough one. Before we talk about this a bit more, this is Seconds Out Live. I think in my indulgent preamble, I haven't really gone into detail, but we are the most interactive show on Boxing YouTube, so please get your questions and comments in. We'll read out as many as we can. Give us a like if you haven't already and a subscribe if you haven't in the past also. But we want to put up the poll nice and early. And the poll is very simply, who wins the Usyk versus Fury rematch at December 21st? Will it be Usyk? Will it be Fury? Before I've even got to the end of the question, Modfather Vinny has got the poll up on screen. Well done, Vinny. We've already had our first vote as well for Usyk, just so you know. And I'll quickly run through some of the latest ones in the chat, and then we'll go back to talking about this Furosity interview. Charlie Rogers says, couldn't fight your way out of a wet paper bag. I'm not sure what that's got to do with my gaming struggles as a 12-year-old, but thanks, Charlie. If you've got a wet paper bag, I'm more than happy to take you up on your challenge. Cloud Strife is talking about the analogy. Jay Sharp, I agree. Although Usyk's really good, Fury has a lanky boxer's advantage. Well, there you go. That's done and dusted then. DB Cooper 1 says, Danny Flexen in 2024 would have been a millionaire esports gamer. Alas, he tore his ACL in his gaming thumb. Didn't we all? Cloud Strife says the first game they played was Zelda Ocarina of Time. I don't know that game, but okay, for the Nintendo 64. Quality game. So this has become like a gaming review platform now. Thunder Road says, did Ayman trim that mullet on the top? Ayman, did you?
If you can see, it's a ponytail kind of thing going on. Just slicked it all back for now. It's a bit too sweaty all going on here. Really, really hot here. So just need to cool down a little bit right now.
Nice, nice. Shades of an old, who was it that had that hairstyle before? Was it Romeo Romeo? The slick back with the ponytail.
You did an interview with him a couple of years back because he disappeared off the circuit. And then I remember, this is well before I joined Seconds Out. Well, I think I wasn't in the industry either. And I was wondering what happened to this guy. And then you popped up with an interview with him, didn't you? Because there was all sorts of rumors about him.
Yeah, he had the first kind of famous pushy boxing dad, I think. Well, I'll say that Charlie Edwards was in a documentary with his dad when he was still a kid, when he was still an amateur. That I remember watching on, I think it was like E4 or Channel 4 or whatever. But yeah, so he was very much, used to train Romeo Romeo outside of the gym and have him lifting weights. And I think, quite punishing stuff as well. But yeah, interesting story, actually. We did our live not too long ago. Was it last week's one where we talked about Stan Dubois, Daniel Dubois' dad? We put a clip out saying Daniel Dubois' dad's a glory hunter, because that was Ayman's quote, in a a nice way, and saying he's pushing his kid to the top and stuff. And he Stan Dubois phoned me over the weekend, thinking that was the interview that we'd done, and said, "Glory hunter, I thought this was supposed to be a respectful interview." And I had to quickly kind of assuage his doubts and say, no, honestly, even that bit was respectful, by the way. But watch the actual video, or at least read the comments, because it's been very, very warmly received and continues to be. David Khan says, Fury will win the rematch. Bellew talks too highly of Usyk because he got knocked out. 8 beautiful, 8 golden, 8 dragon, 8. I'm not going to say that again. Says, Ayman looks like Truman Capote.
Who?
Oh, dear, Ayman. Google's your friend. When I said Google's your friend in the opening monologue, it was to you as well.
As in the Truman Show?
Below the age of 35.
As in the Truman Show?
No, not as in the Truman Show. Yeah, just watch it. Right. Just Google it, rather.
Okay.
Yeah, back to Fury and back to boxing, which I'm sure a lot of people will be relieved to hear. Yeah, Tyson Fury on a Furosity channel. I mean, don't want to be too critical, but he hasn't done this interview with, it doesn't have to be us, but he hasn't done it with a Boxing Social or a Boxing News. He's done it with, bought media, I guess is what people call it these days, but someone who he has a stake in Furosity. I don't think I've ever even drunk any Furosity, so I can't tell you if it's any good or not. I know Frank Warren says he loves it, but you've got to wonder how much he's drunk of it as well. He's more of a wine guy in my experience. But yeah, so Fury's done this interview. He's obviously wants to give the right image, the right presentation, given the last thing anyone saw of him was either losing to Usyk or the incident in the pub up in Morecambe. And, he's back in the gym. He's getting ready for the rematch. It's what we've heard privately as well. Joseph Parker, in a recent interview we did, said Fury had said to him, look, he was laughing about it, but he said, look, it's definitely time to get back in the gym. Devil makes work for idle hands and all of that. Fury, as a, God-fearing man, will get on board with that. And he's getting ready for the rematch now. But I'm not sure any of these comments, maybe they're designed to get under Usyk's skin because he wasn't quite able to do that before the first fight. Maybe he wants the Usyk team to think that he's underestimating Usyk, that he's complacent about the rematch. I mean, I think complacency was a big problem for Fury in the first fight, actually, during. So that's something we can talk about. But I am concerned if any of this isn't tongue-in-cheek and if Fury really believes that Usyk's, an easy kind of amateur style, someone that he should have beaten. And because, it was more comfortable than he was anticipating, he took his foot off the gas and that's why he lost. Because I expect an improved Usyk in the rematch. I expect Usyk to now be more accustomed to Fury's range and size in a way that he wouldn't have become just by fighting similar size sparring partners. And I think Usyk, it's a long time off for him as well, 6 months or more. No, 7 months, isn't it, between first fight and second? And I kind of feel like Usyk will be much improved also. And if Fury thinks it is going to be a walk in the park, then he's going to be sorely mistaken. Ayman, what do you think? How serious can we take Fury's comments?
So just quickly, I did a little Google of this Truman Capote fella. A writer, clearly wrote some influential books that people in the chat might have read before. But imagine doing a little Google search and then seeing this sentence that says, I love reading a huge list of books that I love from fictional novels such as The Old Man, The Sea by Ernest Hemingway, or A Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess, or non-fiction such as Muhammad Ali by Thomas Hauser, or In Cold Blood by Truman Capote. In the same sentence, you've got boxing and Truman Capote clashing. Maybe Thomas Hauser might know or have heard of or even read some of Truman Capote's books. But anyway, in answer of your question, look, I quite liked hearing what Fury had to say, not in the context of what he actually had to say, but to know that the hyper competitor in this elite level athlete is there. And hyper competitors like Tyson Fury tend to be sore losers. Tyson Fury here is being a sore loser. And I remember one of those moments, if you cast your mind back to when Anthony Joshua lost to Andy Ruiz, when he was supposed to be fighting Jarrell Miller that week, a lot of hardcore fans were really disappointed as to the way AJ reacted to that defeat. He was a bit too nicey nice. He was a bit too happy to maybe have, given away the O. Of course, Anti-Josh wasn't in the best of states right then and there, and maybe shouldn't be doing interviews. Probably just should have been escorted straight to the back room, the dressing room. But and just to caveat as well too, sometimes AJ can't win with the way that he reacts to situations as well, because further down the line, AJ ended up, going nuclear, I guess, when he lost to Oleksandr Usyk. But I want to see someone at that level of competition not be happy with the result. I want to see someone at that level, want to get that back and think that they can win and think that they did win and want to put that wrong right in their mind, because it shows that they haven't got 2 feet out of the sport. They've not got one mind on the next Netflix documentary or the next flavor of their drink or the next iteration of their book. We're talking about authors here. Fury's got a few books out there which you can read on the markets. I want to hear from a Tyson Fury that has that grit and determination to want to really go for Oleksandr Usyk, and we seem to be getting that right now. So I quite liked hearing Fury, although I don't agree with what he said there. I think that those are the signs and the little bits you need to hear to know that Fury's all business for later on this year.
Yeah, just to go back to the chat briefly. Beautiful Golden Dragon, I'm not saying the 8s anymore, says, Ayman can't even pronounce Capote. Please tell him how to pronounce it. Grey Dad Guy. That's me. I'm Grey Dad Guy. I wanted a new moniker for a while. I'm Grey Dad Guy. Do you think that could be like memeable? Could I become like a viral sensation? Grey Dad Guy from Seconds Out.
Family Guy, Grey Dad Guy. It doesn't quite have a ring. Someone will turn that into something a little bit better. Truman Capote. There you go.
Yeah. Toby Bartlett says, good evening, Seconds Out and the chat. Thunder Road's asking everyone to hit the thumbs up. Always appreciate you, Thunder Road. Yeah, Tyson Fury. I mean, let us know what you think in the chat, as well as talking about us and pronunciations and new nicknames and so on. What do you think of this Tyson Fury interview? Have you watched it in full? And if so, or even if you haven't, even if you've only seen the headlines, what do you make of it? Is it mind games? Is it self-delusion? It's got to be something along those lines. You don't just release a video. He's obviously gone out of his way to do it, to say those things within it. Why has he done so? What's the thinking? But there's always a plan with Tyson Fury. As much as people like to paint him out to be this spontaneous guy, I don't think it's that simple. I think once he's got a camera in his face, he knows what his intentions are. Neil Sinclair says, totally wrong. He's saying so he can say I won easily. I don't need to fight him again. It's his way of worming his way out. So Neil Sinclair here, not the boxer, it's spelt differently, or ex-boxer, but Neil Sinclair obviously thinks it's a preface to Tyson Fury pulling out of the rematch on December 21st. Let's hope that's not the case. Certainly want to see the fight again. Jack Dutton says, I hope you're right, either that or he's in complete denial, in which case he will lose again, maybe even knocked out this time. That's a very important point that Jack Dutton's raised there, because if Tyson Fury genuinely believes it was an easy fight, particularly in the rounds that most people consider he won beyond doubt, 4, 5, and 6, and a lot of people have said this, not just Tyson Fury in fairness, have said he just needs to do more of what he did in 4, 5, and 6, and that will be enough to win the rematch. That is a concern, because if he thinks he did very little wrong and there's very little that needs changing in camp and in the fight itself, then he will presumably lose again, because Usyk will have improved. He'll be ready to adjust to Fury's adjustments if he makes any. I think Fury needs to, and I'm not saying he doesn't, I'm not sure how this video should be taken, but I think Tyson Fury needs to recognize that it was a close fight, but not many people had him winning at the end, except him and his team, presumably. I think Fury, yes, he should have done more of what he was doing in the middle rounds, but I think that resurgence from Usyk in the kind of, round 8, 9, and 10, I think that would have happened anyway. I think he still would have come back strong. It's just, could Tyson Fury have survived and repelled that offense a bit better than he did? And are there certain adjustments he needs to make technically, tactically to make that happen? If he thinks he doesn't, if he thinks job's done as long as he just does the things he does well even more, then I think he's cruising for another bruising. Sorry to bring that classic out. DB Coupon says, this is just classic Tyson. I'd be worried if he said the opposite. It's good, shows he's up for it, and it's good promo build-up. Yeah, I mean, that's possible. I hope that is the case. Big Boy Game says, Fury is finished in caps. Dropped by a novice boxer, beaten by a champion, and staggering about. I'd be shocked if he turns up. Toby Bartlett says, hit the like button, people. Make the Seconds Out boys happy. I'm already happy, Toby. I'm, what was it? Old Grey Dad. Oh, no, Grey Dad Guy. I've messed it up already. Sorry, Dragon 8, whatever your name is. MB says Fury had success on the front foot. Be aggressive and he can win this. Ayman, is it that simple? Is it a case of being on the front foot more, replicating what he did in 4, 5, and 6 across the 12 rounds? Is that enough for Fury to win?
It's so hard to say because of how well he was doing in that 4th, 5th, and 6th round, and that it was a bit of a mix of everything that we've seen in the past from Fury with this new style that he's now embedded and been entrenched with the last few years off of the back of the way the first Wilder fight went. He's sort of done the reverse of what AJ's doing now, going from being on the front foot to being in boxing, and Fury's gone the other way around. I don't know. I think it'll need to be a bit of both. I did ask this question of those within the industry have a better mind for this than I do. And I said to him, does Fury need to go back to what got him to the dance in the first place, which is the boxing side of things? Does he need to be light on his feet? And I said this to Fury, actually, in the scrum that we did at the press conference in Morecambe, and he kind of just said, look, can I do it anymore? Can I still box on my feet? Words to that effect. I don't know if it's still there. Maybe it's not. Maybe I've got to go forward and get the victory. Clearly, in his answers in the Furiosity video, he says he doesn't think that he can get the win by points. So he has to go get the knockout now. He has to go from foot forward. And maybe that's where the mind game comes in, where now he's because in the past before, we thought Fury was crazy for saying that he's going to go to Deontay Wilder off of the back of how well he was beating Deontay Wilder in the first fight. And then what happened in the 12th round, and another night, maybe someone else would have called that off, but Jack Reese didn't, and that's the way it went. Fury, for me, still won that fight. But we thought he was crazy for saying, look, I'm going to go. He gave his game plan away. He gave it to Deontay Wilder, and Deontay Wilder didn't believe that. He expected a Fury to dance around again, and then he got what happened to him was a great, thrilling fight, even with Fury still having to come up off the canvas to get that victory there. It's hard to tell. It's hard to say. And that's probably the state when it comes to the mind games as to what Fury's trying to put into Usyk's mind as to the way he approaches the second fight. I really think either way, whether it is true and strict boxing or going for that knockout, there are routes to success for Fury. I just think he has to chip away from losing concentration, chip away some of the showboating. And he has to, more importantly as well, he's got to get the corner sorted. Because for me, although he's worked with corners similar beforehand, and although that chaos might be something that works for him, and he's got to understand that. Because if he goes with John Fury in the corner still, and Andy Lee and Sugar Hill Stewart, then that tells me that he wants that chaos because he can work within that. But he needs to have that conversation before in the background with the team and just say, look, I need one clear direction. I don't need to be told you've got this in the bag, sail through, or when I need to be told I need the knockout here, or I need this round here, or I need to win big here. That's kind of a big thing for me, and that's whether that's a discussion from Fury or the team in the background, however that works. That needs to be cemented before the rematch happens.
And just before I go back to the chat, please remember we've got our poll up. We're asking who wins the December 21st rematch. I know a few people in the chat doubting Fury even turns up for it. But assuming he does, who wins between Fury and Usyk in the rematch? Please do vote. Robbie Evans says, it's good that Tyson is being a sore loser. Absolutely not finished. I understand that, if it's eating away at him and that's being projected in that way, maybe it means he's still got a bit between his teeth. A couple of people asking about the whereabouts of John Fury. He's not here, I can tell you that much. Deontay D says Fury will not get in the ring again. Beautiful Golden Dragon says Grey Dad Guy was a British singer from the early noughties. You were the singer? ? Mate, if you'd ever heard me sing, you'd know that's beyond the realms of possibility, unfortunately. Thunder Road says, Danny, does your son support Liverpool or did he already rebel supporting another club? Mate, he'd be kicked out. He'd be living somewhere else. No, he's a big Liverpool fan. We're going on the tour later this year of the stadium. We haven't been to see a live game yet, but that's in the works as well. He's got loads of the different kits. Let's just hope we do a better season next year so it warrants his support. Robbie Evans again says Tyson beats Usyk on the front foot or back. The key is to not fuck around. That's my swearing, not his. He actually started out because he's a decent person. Not fuck around when you have earned the rounds and have this full sense of this is easy. John Fury keeping low from MI5 says Bogdan Dinu. Welcome back, Bogdan. Nice to see you. DB Cooper 1 says Big John needs to go. And that's what Ayman was just talking about, changes to the corner. Yeah, I mean, I thought there was too much going on in the corner. And although even if Fury feels like he can operate in the chaos, if you like, how does his brain kind of amalgamate all the different instructions he's given if they're not all on the same page? How does he kind of become the master computer, if you like, and decide which elements from which piece of advice he's going to keep, and doing all that in real time in the 1 minute interval between rounds when he's got someone else who he's reacting to as well, an opponent? It just seems like too much hassle from my point of view. And it might not be changing the personnel necessarily. It might be just reducing the numbers in the corner. You know, we've seen the impact that Daniel Dubois' dad had during the Hrgovic fight and how adding him to the mix helps inspire and focus his son. Maybe in this case, Fury needs to lose someone from the corner. Now, I'm not saying who that should be. It's up to him what he feels. It might be he feels he needs a proper trainer, a training brain in there in either Sugar Hill Stewart or Andy Lee, because presumably they'll mostly sing from the same hymn sheet because they work together a lot of the time. Andy needs his dad there for more moral support, more spiritual guidance, that kind of thing. And then maybe Andy Lee drops to the bench, if you like. Or maybe he just feels like he needs to really focus on the game plan, stay disciplined and, stick to it in the way that some people have said he needs to replicate what he did in 4, 5, and 6 for the whole fight. Then maybe you want Sugar Lee. That's what they'd be if they were a duet. Sugar Hill and Andy Lee in the corner together, as they have been in the past for some of his great successes. And maybe Big John watches from the front row instead. I'm sure you'll still be able to hear him. I'm sure we all will. It's an interesting one. Ayman, what would you do? Looking at the first fight, knowing the dynamic between the training team, who would you keep? Who would you drop? How would you adjust things?
It's very difficult to say. I'm not too certain on it, to be honest with you. Bottom line, it all kind of depends on what Fury really likes in the corner. Maybe just in the way that Dubois draws strength from his dad being in the corner. Maybe also Tyson draws strength from John, who's there in his corner, always supporting him, always kind of backing him to. Maybe sometimes you need that bit of voice, that little bit of Teddy Atlas in the background, and we only get to hear select little bits of things in the corner, and that paints the picture that we get. But maybe John Fury isn't the big bad in this situation. There are other bits of advice that we don't get to hear, even before they even get to the ring, that Fury that John gives to his son. Because if Tyson didn't want him there, he wouldn't be there. John Fury hasn't been there in corners beforehand. Most recently, it was in the Ngannou fight, it wasn't in the corner, or at least
we did that interview, didn't we? Where John said he doesn't listen to me anymore, so there's no point in me being I haven't spoken to him all through camp.
That's it, exactly. Thank you, Danny, for filling up that blank for me. So that's been decided. So Fury won't not get rid of John because he wants him there to satisfy John. If Tyson feels that he needs to get rid of John, he will get rid of him. I just kind of feel that in what's believed to be a full undisputed rematch in December, to change now something drastically isn't the right course of action. You've got Sugar Hill Stewart, that's your style. You've got the idea of going for the knockout. That's your way of winning. To change it to something completely different, something you don't know, where you're learning completely different methods to try and go for the victory, where on the judges' scorecards it was a close fight. For me, it shows you only need to tweak a couple of different things to get the overturned victory the second time around. So whether that means, like you're saying, an adjustment in the corner where it's one of them or both of them dropped, that might be the route to go. I just feel it's more so a case of knowing what your game plan is and having something different set up, because you've got a fighter there who can win in other methods other than just being on the front foot, and has in the past, and might still have a bit of that. I think he needs to do a little bit of that. I wonder, actually, and this is something that was posed as well to Eddie Hearn and others, whether, and this is a conversation that you and I had, Danny, as we were discussing boxing, whether Ben Davison might be recruited in some form, not an official capacity, but I know that AJ was asking or getting game plans from Ben Davison to some degree in his previous fights before he joined up with Ben. I wonder if they might get a bit of a research pack from Ben to just read a few little things and pick up those things going into the undisputed rematch, just to have that whole kind of, you know, watching the fight side and picking up every single minutia side of it. Not to know, or not to say that Sugar Hill and Andy Lee don't do that themselves, but to cover as many angles as possible, because that's something that, as far as I'm aware, in training setups isn't as picked up upon by the majority of trainers over in the US and UK as of right now. So they're ahead of that, the forefront right now. I wonder if maybe Fury might give Davison a call. We'll only know in the aftermath of it. We'll only know if we get the chance to speak to Ben. But it's just, for me, the bottom line is just a few little things need to change for what I thought was a close fight.
I think Ben and Sugar Hill would actually get on very well. They're both very kind of outgoing, charismatic guys. I think they probably mesh quite well. But I think that's fantasy land at this point, unfortunately. Especially as Ben's working with Joshua at the moment. I'm not sure how comfortable AJ would be with him helping Fury out, considering they're likely to fight at some point in the future. Bogdan Dino says, if Fury had started well and then faded, would that be better than having his best patch in the middle? Could it show he adjusted but still wasn't enough? I think it shows he adjusted, which is a positive point, but he couldn't sustain it. When Usyk adjusted to his adjustments, he tailed off and nearly got stopped at one point as well. I think the issue for me, and I don't know how many people agree with this, you can tell me in the chat, is that Fury, from my kind of view from the sofa, if you like, seemed to become complacent. Not get drunk on his own success so much, but did seem to go into a kind of cruise mode, casual mode. And it seemed like Usyk's resurgence took him by surprise. And I think that's a problem. MC Boswell says, from what I heard, it was Lee who was telling Fury had won. Andy Lee, yeah, I believe that is true. A National Acrobat says, no matter what he does or which trainer he has, Tyson Fury has more chance of knitting fog than he does of ever beating Usyk. Roger Lightbourne says, it's an overwhelming fact all through boxing, and he's done a boxing emoji history, that when a fighter gets smashed like Fury got, it's often very difficult to get back the real fire, in caps. Look at Wilder, prime example. I don't think Fury got smashed. I think he suffered his first career defeat, which emotionally is going to be very tough to get over. I wouldn't say he got smashed. I maintain it's a close fight. I think I had Usyk winning by 2 points at the end. I certainly don't think you can make a case for Fury winning the fight, but I felt it was close. Jack Dutton says, do you think the reason Fury seemed to let Usyk back into the fight in round 8 was at least partly due to physical tiredness? Perhaps. Fury seems to burn off a lot of nervous energy in fights as well. It's something I don't know if we've discussed on here before, but he does a lot of feints, both with his hands, his head, his feet, constantly sweating from very early in the fight as well. He seems to I don't want to say waste a lot of energy, because feints and things like that are important in terms of the game plan, but seems to use up a lot of nervous energy. And I think, maybe getting towards the end of fights, that can be quite tough, especially against Usyk, who's someone who's constantly using his footwork to make you think and to make you move and to make you throw. Ascend Specialist says, you all talk as if Usyk is not going to make adjustments of his own. I think I've said he's going to make adjustments about 4 times. Usyk simply needs to replicate what he did in round 9. That's obviously a knock on saying Fury just needs to replicate what he did in 4, 5, and 6. Toby Bartlett, I think Tyson included John in his corner because of all the hassle and upheaval, I think that's supposed to be, John was causing when he wasn't in the camp corner. I don't know. I think Tyson Fury's a big enough man not to feel the need to pacify his dad at the age he is now. MB, Fury keeping his hands up would be a good adjustment to make. I don't think that style is going to change at this point in his career if he's been using that kind of hands down style for most of his life. DB Cooper 1 says, from Shane Fury's interview, it seems only let John back in to keep him happy, stop the family arguments, nothing to do with being beneficial to camp. Too many big names in camp. I'm not sure how much time John actually spent in camp, but either way, I don't think Fury's preparation was necessarily at fault here. I think it was more some of the issues in the corner that is coming under the microscope now. MC Boswell, Fury needs to respect Usyk's power, which he didn't. Less messing about, he wins. Stats Killer says, Usyk owns UK, cry more, you salty Brits. Okay, Stats Killer, you speak great English for a Ukrainian there. National Acrobat says, the only slight chance that Fury has is if Usyk were to get old overnight, which has happened to fighters in the past. Other than that, Fury is doomed. Beautiful Golden Dragon says, Sugar Hill's training seemed perfect for the Wilder fights, but now I feel Fury needs a new approach. Do you think there's another trainer who could, I'm assuming that means train Fury, other than Ben Davidson? I mean, there's loads out there. it's often been said that Fury should take on Dominic Ingle and that Ingle style. He's worked at the Ingle gym before, but never had them as his full-time trainer. So I think that's something. Big Boy Games says, where are we? First time on SO Live. Danny, a really good host. Thanks, mate. You can't call me Danny anymore. It's Grey Dad Guy from now on. Some personality, defo not an AI bot. There you go. Mike Thompson says, Ben might help Fury with the blessing from AJ. AJ needs Fury to win, so they get the super fight. Yeah, but then the problem with that is, what if Fury then becomes reliant on Ben's input? And then it comes to a Fury AJ fight. And obviously, Ben's the guy who helped bring Fury back from the brink emotionally and with all the problems he was having. So if it came to the crunch and Ben had to choose, it's that, oh, don't make me choose. What if he picks Fury and leaves AJ in the dark? That's pretty tough. MC Boswell, Usyk's welcome here in the UK. It's terrible what's going on in Ukraine. Very valid point. Not entirely relevant to what we're talking about, but still. Straight out of Boscombe, probably the best handle we've had so far in the chat today. Fury's refusal to accept the reality of his defeat is just a coping mechanism. He just doesn't want to deal with it. I mean, we've seen that from so many fighters. Although he also says Usyk will batter him in the rematch. But yeah, you see that all the time. Fighters need to make up a narrative for why they lost, because otherwise, what's the point of carrying on? If you know there's someone out there who will always have your number, how do you carry on knowing that you're not the best in your division and you never will be? It's very, very tough to do. I can think of very few fighters at the top level, at world level, elite level, that have come out of a fight and said, do you know what? I just lost to the better man. He'll always have my number, or it'll always be a difficult style for me. Because it's tough. You need to believe that you can beat everyone. Nat responds to Big Boy Games' praise, saying, Flexen's great. I'm going to start a fan club. I hope I get a kickback from any signing up fee. Bogdan Dino, Fury showboating also seemed quite unnatural for him. He seemed he was trying to dupe either the judges or the crowd and use it as a coping mechanism for not knowing how to deal with Usyk. Megalodon says the body feints Fury does did not stop Usyk from coming forward and landing that left hand. Yeah, I'm not saying they were effective. I'm saying he uses a lot of nervous energy using those feints. DGO 0082 says Fury is mentally broken. The rematch won't happen. Not the first person in today's chat to say that. DB Cooper 1, won't be long till we have AI game plans in boxing. Basically what Ben Davison does. It's a bit harsh on Ben and his team. I think a lot of what they do is very forward thinking and quite impressive, actually, when you're actually in the gym watching them. Phil Harve says Fury should go back to Peter. End of. I was going to say this earlier, that I think the best coach out there for Tyson Fury probably is Peter Fury. But because of whatever, breakdown in relationship has happened there or with the wider family, I just can't see it happening. I didn't want to waste too long talking about something that's very, very unlikely to come to fruition. But yeah, I agree. I think his best form, maybe not his most pleasing to the eye form, but his best form, his most effective form, did come under Peter Fury. And we've seen Peter have success with obviously other fighters as well, including his own son and Savannah Marshall. So yeah, I mean, I'd love to see them reunite, but I just don't see it happening. Mr. Beautiful Blue says, if Fury thinks he won, he isn't going to do anything to prepare differently for the rematch. This is a point we made at length about 10 minutes ago, Mr. Beautiful Blues, in that, yeah, if he genuinely believes it was easy, he won't make the necessary adjustments. Megalodon says, if you watch the opening first seconds of the fight, Fury goes on the front foot and takes centre ring. As soon as Usyk finds his range, Fury relinquished control. Well, yeah, maybe that's something they should be looking at then, and hopefully they are. And we spent a good, opening 40 minutes of this show that we try and cap at an hour, but I don't think it's going to be this time round, talking about this subject. And so we should. It's a headline topic and the most important one of the week. However, there are other points to discuss. So just before we move on to Ryan Garcia and his roller coaster existence, I should just remind everyone who hasn't voted yet, we do have a poll out asking about the Usyk Fury 2, December 21st. Please just let us know who you think is going to win, if indeed it happens. I know a lot of people out there casting aspersions. Ryan Garcia, just to do a quick recap on the latest bit of news concerning the young fighter. Obviously tested positive for Osterine, as we know, after his win over Devin Haney. I can say win because I'm going to correct myself in a minute, or update myself, rather. It was announced last week that he has been in negotiations with the New York State Athletic Commission to come to a settlement, and he will now be banned from boxing for a year. I think he's had to fork over, was it $1 million or $2 million? Ayman can clarify in a minute, to the State Athletic Commission, and he will now be suspended for a year. Some people, including myself, feel like he's got off quite leniently, considering they tested the B sample as well, and he did fail multiple tests. He continues to protest his innocence despite accepting the settlement. He's now talking about suing Eddie Hearn and DAZN, which I'm sure will be music to Eddie's ears if he's watching this. Ayman, what do you make of this latest news about Ryan Garcia? And yeah, please just tell me how much he has paid or will pay the New York State Commission.
So I believe he has to give $1.1 million back to Golden Boy, and I think the money back to the New York State Athletic Commission is around $10,000. I believe it is reported by Dan Raphael, alongside, of course, the year ban that runs from April, and also he has to submit himself to additional testing whilst the ban is active. Yeah, I think I do agree with what you're saying regarding this being, considering how active stars the level of Ryan Garcia are. Really, is he missing all that much? Is he missing all that big of a payday? What sort of fight was he going to have? Who was out there for him? He started rocket off of the back of that Devin Haney fight for sure, but also with the way he's been acting, you don't know how much appetite was there was for him to have another fight in a year's kind of span. I wonder if, well, naturally they've all kind of, or obviously I should say, they've all kind of come and sat around a room and made an agreement. I just wonder how much of this was in light of potential talk of lawsuits going around and how protracted those can be, both on the side of Devin Haney, both on the side of Ryan Garcia, who's now saying that he's going to sue Eddie Hearn. Off the back of that, I wonder how much of that played into the decision or the agreement there. It's disappointing, I guess, because if you're found to have that in the system and strict liability, you can't prove as to why that wasn't a contaminated substance that you took that got you that failed test in the first place. Then you should be banned for it. There is a story going around now that's emerging of a fighter who fought Galal Yafai recently, Moises Calleras, who's been banned, and Liam Cameron, who was out actually last weekend or last Friday, he was banned for 4 years.
4 years.
4 years, yeah. Off of, again, such a, I believe to be minutiae found in his system, and cocaine, I believe.
Enhancing as well.
Exactly, that was the point I was coming to there. And that's 4 years. Now, this is Ryan Garcia, who on multiple occasions, according to this case, has found Ostarine in his system. And I'm not too clued up fully on Ostarine, but I believe Ostarine's more so for making the weight, I believe, as opposed to any actual punch power or resistance or whatever it is. Again, I go to the gym maybe once or twice a week, or I take protein supplements, so I don't really know the situation in and out. But if you're found to have performance enhancing substances in your system, I would hope that the ban would be longer than a year. I think Amir's banned for 2 years. Is it 2 years? Yeah. So maybe that it's on their. Maybe their punishment for Ostarine, maybe the science behind it is that they don't see Ostarine as being one of the top tier performance enhancing substances. Not so certain on that case, but when it comes to drug sheets and drug use, it's a serious situation which should hand out serious bans. I don't believe that 1 year in the context of boxing right now is serious enough of a ban for Ryan Garcia. It's also a case that I feel that with the way Ryan acts and the profile that he's got, and the way kind of news is filtered and the way people receive news these days, it's very easy for him to also escape kind of the social punishment to the eye of you being a drugs cheat as well, which is kind of accepted more so in boxing.
He can shape this as a vindication.
Yeah.
He can make it look like he's innocent through this, because he can say, well, look, all these other people got 4 years, 2 years. They've only given me a year because they know deep down that I'm innocent and I'll end up proving it. And it's just bullshit. Like, everything you said's right, and you're very, very polite about it, and I appreciate that, because it's a good counterpoint to me just flying off the handle and probably getting us sued. But you're suing everyone else, you might as well sue us. Just joking if our owner's watching this. But It's just seriously bullshit. I mean, first of all, I reject completely the idea of negotiated settlements for drug issues. It's absolutely ridiculous. You break the rules, you get caught. The governing body, in this case, the New York State Athletic Commission, should make the decision based on precedent and based on their rule book, and then that's it. It shouldn't be a case of, well, I'll be willing to accept this punishment and pay this amount of money if you do this, and I won't want to admit liability, but if I admit liability, maybe I'll pay. Do you know, bollocks, absolute rubbish. You have a governing body shouldn't be negotiating with a fighter who's been found guilty of taking performance-enhancing substances. And whether it was intentional or not doesn't matter. He hasn't proved it was unintentional. He hasn't even admitted it was in his system. The fact is, it was found on 3 separate tests, 2 from Varda, 1 from New York, to be in his system. Whether it gave him any benefit, irrelevant. Whether it was intentional, irrelevant. Whether he acknowledges it was ever in his system, irrelevant, or at least it should be. So I don't agree with the whole premise of negotiated settlements in these issues. But furthermore, a 1-year ban, as you've pointed out, Ayman, with someone like Liam Cameron who got 4 years and seemed to offer up quite a lot of evidence to his innocence as well, and for a non-performance enhancing drug in cocaine, absolutely crazy. And he's lost his prime years as a result. Now, I'm not saying Liam Cameron, all due respect to him, would have got to the elite level like Ryan Garcia has. That's not really the point. It should be one rule for everyone. And strict liability was really strict in Liam Cameron's case and has been incredibly lenient in Ryan Garcia's case. 1 year for, he's gone into a fight that he was widely expected to lose. He's dropped the guy 3 times and got what looks on the night like a deserved victory. And we should point out that has now been changed to a no contest, as it should. And you can't say the drugs in his system definitely gave him an advantage. There's no way we'll ever know. But to win that clearly and using, he's always been a puncher, but really, and Devin Haney has gone down before, we know that. But to win in such explosive fashion with that in your system and then only get a 1-year ban, it's not just that Ryan Garcia, can present this as a good look for him. It's also, what does it do for boxing? Ryan Garcia has been praised, and rightly so in the past, for bringing in this new generation of fans, the social media generation, Gen Z. And fair play to him for that. But then if what they're getting from the sport is, oh, well, you can take drugs because, he says he's innocent, whether he is or not, he's only got a 1-year ban. He'll be back in a year and he's still a young man. So it just makes absolutely no difference. So, yeah, pissed me off a bit. But let's go to the chat. Where are we? We'll go to the off-topic thing afterwards. Cloud Strife says he's sick of talking about drug cheats. I wish I'd read that before embarking on a 5-minute tirade. Bogdan Dinu says, kind of sucks, but if you can afford the best legal team and it's only fair to allow those accused to pick their own teams, then it's the system's fault. Mr. Beautiful Blue says, more money in the pot and everybody happy. DB Cooper 1 says, the funniest thing is the New York Commission is by far the toughest one in the USA. Should be 4 years down to 2 years for full cooperation / favourable evidence like Amir Khan. Yanks are the worst for it. I mean, yeah, jingoism aside, I do agree with most of that. Cloud Strife, if Conor Benn got criticised for 2 years, Garcia should too. Lewis Hart says, what a duo, Al Ayman and his Flexcellency. I prefer it to Grey Dad Guy, I've got to say. Toby Bartlett, Michael Benson has tweeted that apparently Moises Caleros died in March. Okay, I mean, that's off topic, but we'll check that out.
That's to do with the ban that's been handed out by the British Boxing Board of Control off of the back of this fight with your fight. I just wonder with that situation whether the process has started and they're just seeing through the process, and whilst it might seem a little bit, more than just a little bit unnecessary, they've just had to follow through everything.
Yeah, maybe they weren't aware of his passing. I don't know. Lewis Hart and DB Cooper having a little chat. Lewis Hart says, his Flexcellency talking facts. Thanks very much. Bogdan Dinu, to be honest, the Zone had Ryan in front of cameras non-stop while he was still under investigation. They don't care either. Conor Benn, I mean, wasn't in front of cameras necessarily, but the Zone Matchroom were talking about it quite often. But then we want them to be open. So it's hard to criticise them for that. It seems like no one but the fans care. Haney will have a massive payday in the rematch. Yeah, I mean, Haney's officially retired, isn't he, at the moment? But he'll come back, I'm sure, when Garcia is able to fight again. But, because he's unhappy for his own reasons with Eddie Hearn, and not really justifiable ones, in my view. But I'm not going to embark on another tirade. We're already, 10 to 5 in UK time here. But yeah, I'm not particularly happy with how the Garcia thing has come out. However, there are other things to talk about on this week's edition of SO Live. But please do give us a thumbs up if you haven't already. Give us a subscription if you're not already a subscriber, and do vote in our poll. We're asking people who wins the Usyk Fury rematch in December. Please do vote. It's a simple binary choice. So we're kind of bouncing from one scandal to another, not in boxing generally, but certainly on this episode of SO Live. Because having covered the Ryan Garcia drugs ban, and I'm loath to call it a ban considering it was only for a year, but I've got to get past it. I will get over it, I promise. Something of a betting scandal has erupted in UK boxing, and very little details about this are known. But Ayman, you've been out this week or last week, asking people about it. Just give us kind of a brief summation of what's gone on, or as much as we know.
Yeah, sure. So we saw, I think, as we were heading towards the arena, the flyer or the statement from Matchroom Boxing to say that the fight had been pulled. There was no further information about that. And whilst we were waiting for some of the fights, or in between fights, myself and Vinny just filming some other couple of little bits, and we were in the concourse. And as we were heading back towards our seats, Kane was having a chat with someone, maybe a fan or something, I'm not too sure. And I went to Kane because I know Kane somewhat well, been to a few of his fights beforehand, and he's kind of around the West Midlands area as well too. In fact, actually, he was one of the most random boxers I bumped into as I was over there. Ben versus Dobson, I happened upon Kane in one of the hotels, who just randomly there. He said that he was just discussing a couple of things with Matchroom, so I'd seen Kane in Las Vegas there. But I had a chat with Kane, and I said to him, "What happened with your fight?" And he goes, "Oh, I can't say too much. It'll all come out in a few hours. I can't say anything." And I said, "What, is someone injured?" He goes, "All I can say is I'm here. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to fight." And then some other gentleman came in. I didn't think anything too much of it, to be honest with you. And I just went back to my seat. Since, of course, and as the Eddie Hearn interviews were conducted, Eddie had then said that there was some irregular betting patterns surrounding the fight between Kane and Akib, and he made the choice, and he hadn't had the situation arise beforehand to pull the fight. I did ask Hearn when he'd heard about this and how late was the decision made, and he said it was literally as close as to the fight as we could do. When we got the news, we pulled the fight. It's a very serious issue as well here, because you're talking about corruption and plotting and planning the way fights go. Now, Kane maintains his innocence. Akib hasn't said anything, as far as I'm aware, as to the situation. So I can't fully grasp as to whose side is in the wrong here, or whether it's both of them. Kane is saying that it's not me or my team on that side of it.
Add to this,
but yeah, no, you jump in, Danny.
Yeah. So we've approached everyone involved really for an interview on this. Kane Baker says he said everything he needs to say already. He's waiting on his board meeting in a chat I had with him earlier. Akib Fiaz, we haven't heard back from. Jamie Moore, Akib's trainer, didn't want to do an interview at this time. But one thing I will say is that Kane Baker put some quite startling accusations up on his Instagram story earlier today. I can see, just looking now, that the story has since been removed. I replied to that story, asking him about doing an interview, because he'd said, we need to put the truth out there, and basically telling Akib Fiaz that he needed to tell the truth about his part in the events. Obviously, this is all unverified accusations and has, as I say, been deleted now from Instagram. And I didn't screenshot it because I'm an idiot. But from memory, Kane Baker was basically saying he'd had people telling him from Fiaz's team, he alleges, telling him that the fight would only happen if he froze it, and that money had been left for him in a hotel, apparently, for Kane Baker, and that it was him, Kane, who reported this to his team and told them that he wanted the fight pulled as a result. Now, as I say, we can't verify any of this, but Kane Baker, with a pretty hefty defense of his any part he had in this on Instagram earlier, as I say, since been deleted. But yeah, vociferous in placing the blame fully on Akib Fiaz's team. He also said Why are you making out, I'm paraphrasing here from memory, but why are you making out why your team have told you you're not allowed to talk about this subject publicly? That's not true. My team haven't said that to me, and you owe the fans the truth. So, yeah, I'm glad I read it before it was deleted. But he's placing any blame squarely on... but I can't remember anything like this ever coming up before. And I know boxing betting is becoming increasingly popular in comparison to other sports. So maybe, this thing wouldn't have been big before. Maybe stuff like this has gone on before. And very few details are released until the investigation's been concluded by the Boxing Board of Control, the Gambling Commission, and so on. But it is worrying that this has somehow gotten into our sport. It's something, match fixing, I guess, is the overriding term that people talk about. It's something you hear a lot more in snooker and football and some of the more mainstream sports. I mean, maybe it's a good sign. Maybe boxing becoming more mainstream. I'm joking, of course. Ayman, what do you make of it? I mean, you speak to a lot of boxers. You know a lot of boxers. Is this something you could see happening? Not necessarily with this fighter in particular, but just generally, a boxer hard on their luck, not making ends meet, not got sponsors. Is this a loophole, if you like? Is this an easy way for boxers to earn money in a way they shouldn't?
Yeah, no, it's exactly that. If it goes on, that would be what it is, especially when you're not at the top of the tree. You can maybe kind of pad your purse out a little bit more. So if you're finding ways to make that little bit of money, as long as you've got, and it doesn't have to be unilateral. It can be one-sided. You don't have to clue in your opponent there. There are strong rumors, nothing substantiated, that Richard Latte would or has taken dives in his fights, considering some of the ways that he's being knocked out. People would point the finger at Richard Latte. Again, nothing proved. There was also rumours surrounding Dave Allen and Dorian Darch a few years back as well too. Again, nothing substantiated, and I wouldn't want to say it was the case, but there were rumours there that these sort of things were occurring. Nothing founded on those points, but you could see that sort of thing happen. It's something that's not needed in boxing right now. Another scandal of a different kind, though. But you would imagine that if this is taking place at the lower level of the sport with respect to both fighters, that it does occur higher up the chain as well. Boxers have had those problems in the past with betting, and whether that you could never fully write off that it would bleed into their own careers outside of betting on things that don't have anything to do with boxing. And boxers had those problems in the past, and I think, like I mentioned there, Dave Allen had that problem, and he was public about betting on boxing and withdrawing from that. Thankfully, Dave is a lot better. But look, need more details on the situation there. Kane has also implicated other people in the boxing fraternity as well too with the situation. So just need more details on this, but it's not a great look. And I think Eddie, to be fair, has acted the right way in pulling this fight once he got news of it, not comfortable with it going ahead. So right move from Eddie's side and Matchroom Boxing side. I just wonder what the situation is, and hope we get that transparency.
So someone has sent me a screenshot of the Instagram story, which I was too slow to make, which has now disappeared. So this is Kane Baker's story from Instagram that he since deleted. He says, "There was no bets made from my people or my team, and the investigation from whatever gambling organisation will confirm this. This whole situation only got flagged when a member of my family contacted the other team to ask why there was bribes and money at my hotel. If I was betting against myself, surely I would have gone ahead with the fight. I wouldn't have allowed a family member to contact the opposition to stop the fight. The fight was never going ahead unless I agreed to take a dive. That's the fucking facts. Team Fiaz did not want to fight me and told me several times. And another thing, if I wanted to bet on myself, I wouldn't have a member of Team Fiaz flying around getting bets on. I'd get them on myself. Make it make sense. And the fact Fiaz reckons he's been told he can't speak on the matter is pure bullshit, because no one has told me that I can't speak. So enough bullshit, you pair of pricks. You've admitted it to your manager, so find an arsehole between you and tell the truth to the fans." Then he has a pop. Well, he's meant to have a pop at Steve Wood, but he's accidentally had a pop at Steve Goodwin and then corrected himself. "You should fucking release that. A member of your team has admitted to you that he has placed bets on me and trying to get me to dive. This is my livelihood too. My mental health. Why should I have to deal with cunt after cunt calling me a cheat when I've been an honest fighter my whole career?" Tell the fucking truth. The fight only got pulled when my family member got in contact with the coach to stop the fight. The only person with any decency in that team is the coach. Facts. Now, we are not endorsing any of that Instagram content from Kane Baker, which has since been deleted. But it's just important to read out what Kane was claiming late yesterday afternoon. But yeah, so huge alarm bells. I'll read some of these comments on it before we move on to our fourth and final segment of the week. Thunder Road says, did Akib get one of Rishi Sunak's team on the blowout? They apparently love a cheeky bet. Bit of political humour there. There's a general election coming, if you didn't know, here in the UK. DB Cooper 1 says, have these Muppets not followed sporting news and high-profile betting scandals in the past year? Silly, they literally traced West Ham guys' bets to a tiny village in the Amazon. You won't get away. Bogdan Dino says, shouldn't be surprising, to be honest. Boxing is a magnet for dodginess. I mean, can't really argue with that. The barriers to accessibility are incredibly low and always have been. DB Cooper 1, I reckon anything over £50 on an Akib Fiaz KO probably set off huge alarm bells. Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of that's been made of the fact that Akib Fiaz, I think, only has one stoppage in 10 fights. And there was, this is unconfirmed, but it was alleged that a lot of the irregular betting patterns that we talked about were on an Akib Fiaz early stoppage. So we'll see how the investigation progresses. But fourth and finally, we've seen a big win for Ben Shalom. We've talked a lot about Shalom's woes and, you know, his fight is not necessarily coming through for him. Fight's not selling particularly well on occasion. And also being largely shut out of the big Saudi events, the Riyadh season events that have seen Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn both fill their boots. But we've seen a minor yet significant, I suppose, win for Ben Shalom in that his fighter, Tyler Denny, went on away turf on a matchroom show and successfully defended his European middleweight championship against Felix Cash, who was the bookie's favourite. We talked about betting. Was the bookie's favourite to win. Did so in good style. Ayman was there ringside. And afterwards, we saw Ben Shalom not only get in the ring and shake hands with Eddie Hearn, but was actually afforded some TV time to talk about his big win. Sorry, Tyler Denny's big win on DAZN. Ayman, what did you make of the fight, first of all? Let's give Tyler Denny his credit before we talk about Shalom himself.
Yeah, I didn't think this was the full picture of Felix Cash that we've seen in the past. Definitely, I don't know if that's part of to do with him joining over with Adam Booth, having left Tony Sims in the Sims gym and having a long time out the ring for reasons of that he's disclosed in the past, saying that he's had some turbulent times outside the ring to do with his family and kind of recovering from that. And Eddie's kind of made mention that he needs to kind of really focus on boxing if he wants to continue or be successful in the ring. That ring rust there maybe was evident, but for me, it looked like Tyler Denny was just a level above. And rewind a couple of years back, and the way that Felix Cash had dispatched of Denzel Bentley, you would have been forgiven for thinking that Tyler Denny might suffer the same fate that Denzel Bentley did on that night. But Tyler was, like I said, just a level above him, beat him to the punch. For me, it looked like that punch that caused the cut was, sorry, I'll give it away there, but it wasn't because of a head clash. It was to do with a punch. And Tyler just seemed to have an answer for everything that Felix threw at him. It's a real big win for Tyler, who I said to Tyler in the aftermath of it, you know, do you feel that you're one of the faces of boxing? Because when Boxer launched, they were really looking for one of those. And the rumor was that on the Lawrence Okoli contract, when they were looking to sign him, that he would be the face of Boxer. And whilst I don't think Tyler would want or maybe get that level of machine coverage that they would push with Lawrence Okoli, maybe he's deserving of some of that, considering that when Boxer were looking for people to push their platform and real success stories in their formative years, Tyler's been one of those who at every hurdle has given them wins, has brought, you know, that success story to Boxer. And, you know, Tyler said, look, I'm not really looking for that. I'm just kind of looking for those paydays and kind of bigger and better opportunities. But maybe he's one of the faces of the West Midlands now, is getting this resurgence and having promoters put some money into the region where a lot of the times it's the smaller hall shows, it's the H suite in hotels and, you know, the little suites in Aston Villa ground. So Tyler can be really proud of the fact that they got the win. The BCB gym as well too, have really taken their shine in the spotlight with fighters like Nathan Heaney, Liam Davis coming through. Rachel Ball was another one as well too a few years back, who have really kind of been able to upset the apple cart. I don't want to get away from some of the strong rumors and whispers amongst the hardcore fraternity surrounding Felix Cash, and a lot of people, and Tyler Denny made mention of this as well too, that maybe there was a silent ban going on. First and foremost, we don't know that to be the situation, but people do allege that. No strong evidence that is the case, but off of the back of, and this is the argument, and I present the argument that people make surrounding it, is that off of the back of Conor Benn having performance enhancing substances in the system, the Sims Gym fighters, or ex-fighters as it will be in Felix Cash's case, haven't had the best successes since that's happened. Again, nothing evidenced as to that being the case, apart from, of course, the losses, but you can't fully connect the dots there at the moment. I just think that with this situation right now, Felix has really kind of got to assess, like Eddie has said, as to where his career goes, as to where he really wants to go. But I wonder if and I've seen it as well, that some of the hardcore boxing fans will point the finger and say this is because of this specific reason. I kind of tend to think that it's a lot more to do with just that, and that really the out of ring activity for Felix has curtailed his path in boxing. But he's really got to kind of pick up the pieces right now, whether he continues with Adam Booth. But Shalom will be really happy with the way that it all came out, especially with him dancing in the ring, as I saw him do in beating Eddie Hearn. And Eddie, another hyper competitor, has now lost to Frank Warren in the whitewash, and now Boxer as well too. So he'll be, I'm sure, looking to get that win back in the future.
Yeah, I mean, you asked Tyler Denny, does he feel like one of the faces of Boxer? It must be hard for him to, considering they didn't win the purse bids for this fight. You know, Ben Shalom and Boxer have come under a lot of criticism, and rightly so in my view, not so much for pulling fighters out of purse bids, but for doing so often at short notice. This is a purse bid they actually entered into for once, and they should be praised for that. And Eddie Hearn did say afterwards, hopefully this will encourage Boxer to match their fighters against our fighters going forward. But they lost the purse bids, so they ceded that advantage at least to the other fighter, although it did still end up taking place in Tyler Denny's backyard, certainly compared to Cash. But then he has to thank Eddie Hearn for that, not Ben Shalom. So that's an interesting one. I mean, yeah, it's always good to get a win over a rival. I think Hearn said that afterwards as well. I'm sure he's done it in the past enough times. He knows what it feels like. But Tyler Denny, I would like to see Boxer get behind some of the guys they've cultivated and brought through. You look at how they've treated Richard Riakporhe is a really good example. He was one of the faces of Boxer when they did the deal with Sky Sports. They cultivated him. They got him the right opponents at the right times to guide him into position for a world title shot. When he got that world title shot, not only was it home advantage at Selhurst Park against someone who's a big ticket seller in their own backyard, but it was against someone he'd already beaten as well. So all the things were in his favour. Obviously, we know now that he lost the fight, but they did everything they could to help one of their first kind of signed talents out. But then you look at some of the others. You got Dan Aziz, who they built up really well, similar to Denny, you know, but in Aziz's case, he won English, British. I think he'd won English before he joined Boxer. But British, Commonwealth, European, all the way up to a final eliminator for a world title. But then it did kind of feel like they signed Joshua Buatsi and served Dan Aziz up a little bit. You know, I'm sure that he won't thank me for saying so, because Dan will have gone into that fight fully believing he was going to win. But they were longtime friends. They were never really necessarily on the track to fight each other. Dan had done all this stuff. He was the Boxer guy. And then suddenly Buatsi comes in and they have that fight. Buatsi wins. And now you've got Tyler Denny. They've built him up. He's got to a certain level. He's won the European title. Brilliant. You know, a lot of people would say he's overachieved. I'm sure Denny wouldn't agree with that. And now, biggest fight of his career, biggest threat. Bookies had Felix Cash as the favourite. And they lose the purse bids to their rivals, which is, you know, he could have had to cede home advantage. He could have, I don't think it would have made a difference, as it turned out. I think Felix Cash, everything Ayman said is true. I think he needs more time, perhaps, with his new trainer. He needs more activity. You know, I did ask him in an interview a few weeks ago if he felt the inactivity would hurt him. because Tyler Denny had been more active. He thought not. He thought he was simply levels above. It did not prove true on the night, and that nasty cut didn't help things either. I did say cut. So, yeah, I think good for Ben Shalom. It's nice to see him in the spotlight. It's nice to see DAZN being magnanimous enough to give him his moment as well on camera. And he wasn't gloaty about it either, so credit to Shalom for that. But I would hope this, puts a fire under him and teaches him to stick by the guys who stuck by him, the ones who have been stars on Sky for him so far, and to, invest in them more so and get them to the top rather than just, investing more in the guys that have come later on already with an established name like a Lawrence Okoli or a Josh Buatsi. I'd like to see him get behind more the Dan Azizes and the Tyler Dennys. But that's enough rants from me today, I think it's fair to say. Let's see some of the comments from the chat and then we'll get the poll results up for you. Big Boy Garms says, where did Shalom come from? Is he another daddy's boy? Well, Big Boy Garms, I think I called you Big Boy Games by mistake earlier, so I apologise for that. There's an interview with Ben Shalom on Seconds Out where we're in a car. And yeah, we're filming it. It's a car journey from a boxer press conference to Kala Sauerland's HQ, or the Wasserman Boxing HQ. And it's a lengthy interview where he talks about his background and how he got into boxing and so on. So I recommend you seek that out. Eamon, it was you filming that, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. Shaky camera.
Bumping about in the car, yeah.
Yeah, got a steady hand.
Good days, good days. Charlie Rogers says, Ben Shalom is a wet flannel, couldn't fight his way out of a dry paper bag. At least I got the benefit, I got the bigger insult of the wet paper bag earlier. Grimes says, Felix Cash, Joe Cordina, Sims has run out of special sauce. I think that's a bit harsh. Nothing's ever been proven in that regard. And Tony Sims, from my experience, and obviously other people could say different things, but from my experience, is a man of the utmost integrity. DB Cooper 1, Ben Shalom has been doing well. He just lacks the aura, sadly, in a world dominated by promoters who are influencers. And also says, he did go to private school, so who knows, might have a bit of Wonga behind him. Wonga, there's an old reference for you. Grey Dad Guy appreciates that, DB Cooper 1. Right, so we've been going now for nearly an hour and a quarter, so I think it's time for those poll results. We did ask you at the start of the show, who is going to win the Usyk-Fury rematch on December 21st? And while a lot of you said that Fury will not turn up, so there will be no rematch, there will be no rematch. We did ask you nonetheless who wins. And Mod Father Vinny, if you can hear me, please do give us the results of that poll. And just like a click of the fingers, it should come up in the chat. Oh, no, he's put it up in our group chat, at least.
9%.
Very close one. Thank you all for voting, by the way, because we have had a massive turnout, probably more than they can expect on election day. But the winner, or who people proclaim will be the winner, is Oleksandr Usyk with 54% of the vote. Tyson Fury with 45%. So people still have the rematch as a very close fight, and perhaps closer than they did before the first fight. I think we did a poll before the first fight. I think it was Fury something like 60-40. So it's interesting. It hasn't switched as much as I would have thought after that first fight. But it was a very close first fight, so I can understand. Someone called Paddy Brady in the chat now calling out John Fury. This poll result's gone to everyone's head. DB Cooper 1 in return calling out Molly May. I still think you'd lose, DB Cooper 1, but you crack on. But yeah, so want to thank you all for tuning in. Please do give us a thumbs up if you haven't already. Subscribe if you haven't already. We're always, more subscribers, always welcome here at Seconds Out. And if you're watching on playback rather than in the live, you obviously have missed out on the wonder that is the live chat. But you can still comment, and we will respond to some of those comments later on when the video is up. We'll also be available if you're just tuning in now and you've missed it. You can watch it back on YouTube. But another option, if you don't want to look at our ugly mugs, sorry, Eamon, we've got to drag you into that, is audio platforms. So we are on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Music, etc., etc. It's not called iTunes anymore, is it? Apple Music. I am Grey Dad Guy, so there you go. Please do either listen to us, watch us, enjoy it, and give us your comments. But as is customary, Grey Dad Guy always gives the final closing remarks to the co-host, Mr. Ayman Khan.
Yeah, unfortunately, DB Cooper, you'd get outworked by Molly May. If you know the reference. But thank you to everyone for joining in on Seconds Out Live. Again, and sometimes these we had a lot to talk about, but in the leaner weeks where there isn't a big event going on, it's great to see that we're building a following, and we truly do appreciate every single one of you contributing in the chat by clicking the like button, subscribing, sharing as well too, and on Spotify as well too, helping us grow. So thank you very much for joining in. We couldn't do this without as well to great dad guy Danny Flexen and Vinny Kiss in the background as well. We will be keeping you abreast of all the latest boxing information and news that happens throughout this week. And we're expecting something big in the form of a big announcement. I think it's going to be Wednesday, press conference. Anti-Joshua's next fight. He's back at Wembley. We thought we'd lose Joshua over to Saudi Arabia, but he's back now. Yeah, that's right. It might be Danny Flexen. I heard he's one of the front runners. I've got to get past
a wet paper bag first.
He's one of the front runners alongside, we believe it, to potentially be Daniel Dubois. It could also be Zhilei Zhang or Joe Parker. Either way, Anti-Joshua is in a huge fight back at Wembley. So we're looking forward to that, and we'll bring you the latest on that. We think it's Raheem and Frank there bringing you the action. But once again, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you guys on the next one.